I won't be married at 50 even though I've socialized every weekend for 30 years. What's more, there's over 100 years of research supporting everything I've experienced. Look, although I'm a successful best-selling author, I'll be single at 50, and it's not wholly by choice. Is it better to be single as a man of that age and unmarried ever? Well, I'll be pondering that now and seeing how the research compares. So the reality is I'll be a bachelor at 50. Wow, I never thought that would happen. But then again, to be honest, I probably never thought about it. I never really planned as such. I just went with the flow. And that's okay, I think, well, right now. But it does create a fear, potential regret. When I say potential, I mean I don't know where I am right now with it, because I'm not there yet. I mean, it's the future that will tell me whether or not I regret it all. But for now, all I can do is perhaps start contemplating the potential for the potential regret. I can't wind back the clock. That's one thing I cannot do. That's one thing that anybody at any age cannot do. And despite great knowledge in the research, it's not going to wind things back. All I can do is learn, though, from my experience, and that's what research is, isn't it? It's learning from others' experiences, it's learning from the best laid plans. So with that in mind, I start thinking now about what it is that got me to here, got me to be bachelor. I mean, if we go back, say, a generation, not even a generation, somebody my age was considered, well, off limits insofar as too old, set in their ways, will never be father, will never be anything but a potential old man, grumpy, cantankerous, and that's it. Signed, sealed and delivered without the delivery of the baby. But maybe there's hope. I don't know. I'm just contemplating it. I'm trying to figure it all out. And with the past in mind, I think that's the ingredients for the future. I mean, the reality is I went out every weekend for 30 years. 30 years. And not only every weekend, and when I say going out, I went and socialized everywhere. And it wasn't just, say, on a Saturday night. It was a Friday night, a Saturday night. And I'll be honest, it wasn't that I loved any one particular element of that. It was the collection of things. I'd call it socialization. And look, 30 years is a lifetime. 30 years as an adult, 30 years in adulthood is a lifetime. You could say it's your best 30 years, your most energetic 30 years, your first 30 years as an adult. And there isn't a thing I don't remember. There's been rough times, tough times, but there's been great times. And I think I never came out of any one night out or weekend away or weekend at home or weekend socializing thinking I'm not going out next weekend. There's a stop on that. I'm going to finish it, draw a line under it. This is it. I'm too old or anything like that. I remember when I was about 25. Yeah, I was 25 or so. And there was this girl I knew, a guy. I was in college with a guy. I was related to the girl. If you're watching, hope all is well. But they were getting married and they decided to have an engagement party. And they were a couple of years, maybe a year or two older than me. That's about it. And look, that's half my age now, essentially, which is crazy. But it was a lovely sunny evening, just like this evening. It was a Saturday evening, I remember. And the particular engagement party was on around 7 p.m. And I wanted to be in the bars at 9, 10-ish. And so there was a mutual friend of ours, myself and the people that were getting married. And I was going to meet that person. And we were going to, single guys, go out. And that was all good. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I decided to go early so I could go and leave early and be transparent about it. After all, I was single and it was time to mingle as far as I knew. And party was pretty quiet, to be honest. The people were pretty much set in their ways at this stage. They had a plan. Obviously, they were going to get married, where they were going to live, where they're going to build or buy a house, where they're going to live or be beside their parents or grandparents or people they knew or anything like that. So it was all kind of planned for, and that was fine. They were, as I said, a little bit older than me, 1 or 2 years. Now, really and truly, at that stage, it didn't click with me at all that, it's time for me now, I'm 25 kind of thing. They're doing it. They're on a year down the line. So I should do it. It never really clicked with me at all. Not that I was unaware of it. I was very aware of it. But it just didn't kind of register with me that this was the time when I was 25. And so I met this girl at the party, the engagement party. And again, she was a year, maybe 18 months older than me. And nice looking girl. We were chatting. And the time came, I was kind of looking at the clock or whatever. And I said to her, I'm just going to go now, soon, in about 10 minutes. Where are you going? She said. I said, well, I'm going to go out and socialize. And she was like, what? Why are you doing that? And I thought she was going to say, you're like disrupting the party or you're party pooper or something like that. But there was nothing like that. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It was, why are you doing that? You're too old. We're too old now, she said. And the thing in my mind that clicked was, how the hell could I be too old? I'm only like a year younger than the people who are getting engaged here, this party. And not only that, but they only met a year or two ago. So how could it suddenly be that they were okay and they were young enough to meet and meet in a normal social fashion? And then suddenly there's a line drawn in the sand and they're too old, because I'm that age now. It just didn't sit right with me. It all happened in a split second in my mind, and I thought, oh, wait a sec, don't contemplate your age in that regard. You still have 2 legs, 2 arms. You're still young. You're 25, 26, 27, whatever. So that was one watershed moment for me. If I look back, maybe I should be thinking differently. 10 years on now that I think about that, I was 35. I was definitely 35. And a lot happened in between, as you can imagine. 35 years of age, my friend, my very good male friend, who I socialize with a lot, texted me one morning. And look, he was going out with a girl for a while, and I knew that. And I knew her as well. And it was going fine. They weren't that long going out. But suddenly, the text read, just got engaged. I was lying in my bed looking at it. I was like, what the hell? Got engaged. And a little switch clicked with me. Oh, he's 35. Because I knew him well. We're the same age. And then I said, sure, he's the same age as me. Okay, so if he's done it, maybe I should do it. So that definitely crossed my mind. When you're lying in the bed, you're just up, not even physically up, and you're just awake, that definitely rings a bell. So I got up, we got changed, got ready, and so on and so forth. Got on with my day, and it was in the background. It was in the background of my thoughts. Now, look, as it turned out, that particular relationship, it didn't make the altar. Nope, they didn't make the altar. So, in fact, it didn't even get further than maybe a couple of months after that. So, there was no real period of engagement prior to wedding even. The invites weren't even sent out, I don't think. So, that was a moment of 35 for me. And it was when I tell those 2 little kind of memories and 2 little stories, there's 2 little pieces of learning in that, isn't there? There's one where watershed moment, oh, the people are getting married. The people are in around my age group. And then 2, it's followed by, like the positive, it's followed by the negative. It's like driving a car very fast and then suddenly brakes are put on. When you start in between thinking about yourself, your own personal case, because I'm here, I'm a peer, the same age group, hang around with the same people, go to the same places, have had the same general experiences, we're the same general culture. Why not me? And then that happened. Okay. The negative for me and the positive together allow for balanced thinking, right? And with that balanced thinking, then it becomes a case of, well, this is one individual relationship here. One man, one woman. I'm not with them. I won't be with either of them. And so, with me and a partner, female, my choice, well then, I have to take the positive and negative of this particular case. And this is what we do in research, isn't it? We look at one case on a case-per-case basis and put it all together, and we look at it more generally after that. So we weigh it up for ourselves. And that's what I did at those ages. But I was 35. So if I go to, say, 40, I skip on, I just start thinking now with regard to like the 5-year brackets. Okay, I went 10 years. As I said, I have loads of stories from 25 to 35 and even before 25 for certain. But at 40 for me, definitely was one of those ring-a-ding-a-ding moments. Certainly, I can remember my 40th birthday, and it was like the feeling of, is this it? Like, and I think that's because, you know, when you're younger, there was a saying like life begins at 40. And when I was 40, personally, I was thinking, oh, how have things worked out like this? How am I 40 now, all of a sudden? 40. And nothing has worked out in the way I wanted it to work out. Not everything, but nothing like that. And that was in my personal life in many ways. And that was tough. And it's not something that I think men are even given the license to speak about or to be heard about, more so. Because middle age is for us all, isn't it? Man or woman. But, licking my wounds, moving on, it's a time of watershed moments, isn't it? Any big birthday. So what happened to me then was, okay, I remember meeting a great friend of mine, female, and she said to me, you know, she was older, she said, your 40s are the best decade. And I thought, okay, she knows, she's older, she's honest, she's my friend, I trust her. And I've often thought about that. I remember where she was sitting, remember how she said it, and she meant it. And I trusted her. Because within a couple of months of my 40th birthday, everything changed. Not only in my life, but in the world. If you're in around the age group, you know exactly what I'm talking about now. Because the pandemic hit. COVID-19 pandemic. So I was literally only just getting my head around, I'm 40, what do I do now? With regard to my personal life, obviously I really need to take stock here, if I'm single, if I want to have somebody, if I want to have a child, whatever. No sooner had I gone through that in my mind than, boom, this thing hits. And I was living alone, and lockdown, and everything came to me. Now many people said, well documented, and I don't want to drag on about COVID, certainly not in this video. Some people said about it being a reset. Certainly a word that I heard more regularly at that time. And if it was a reset for many, it wasn't really a reset for me, because I came out of the pandemic effervescent and energetic and ready to rock and roll again. And so when I speak about 30 years going out and about, Obviously, there's a couple of years there in between with regard to the pandemic that I couldn't go out. Nobody could go out. But as soon as I could go out after that, my emotional brain, my past relationships, sorrows, everything was gone, wiped away. It was like getting your slate cleaned, getting the hard drive wiped. I was ready. I was rocking and rolling. I thought, look, everybody will have a positive attitude now because they've been locked up. Now they can go out. And in my country, it was like 2 kilometers max. You couldn't walk anywhere for a period. That was 5 kilometers, lockdowns all the time. It was just ridiculous, really, looking back on it. Trying to cage wild animals. That's what basically we were. But look, I kept the law, did our best for everybody, and then I was ready to go out and about. And so off I went. I met a girl. She was a nice girl, but it was only briefly. But it didn't matter to me because, no, that was her choice that it was only briefly. It was only a conversation or two, but it was positive, and it was enough to know that, hey, my 40s can be what my friends said. They can be positive. You can meet new people. You can meet people who are just as bubbly and ready to get out there. And so I thought to myself, well, this is good. This is a good start. And so things will continue like this. And so I kept positive and I kept going out. And so from there, I started the trend again, the same way, slightly altered in many ways, but certainly the routine of getting out and about. And I kept it going for another year. I said, I'll give it a whirl, see how it goes. And the year turned into 2 years. And then it was, we'll give it this season. We'll see how the summer goes. And we'll keep going out. And then we'll see how the autumn goes. And then we'll see how the winter goes. And suddenly we're in spring. Because if you do the winter, you're doing well. Of course, you got Christmas and some nice times to socialise in between. But you do see the differences. Differences in the way people socialise or lack of socialisation. The way you see women or not see women, and so on. Meet people. Changes in crime. Changes in socialisation. Economics. Attitudes towards alcohol, attitudes towards drugs, coping mechanisms, dance routines, music, or thereof lack of, taxis, early bars, late bars, discos, nightclubs, DJs, bouncers, barmen, bar ladies, barkeeps, baristas, everything. And things change. That's one thing. But when I approach this age now, I look back and there's an ad on television and it said, well, recent ad, and it said something about a lifetime is made up of moments. And yes, to a certain degree, that rings a bell with me when I think about this. I can't believe, though, we're nearly 30 years in. And when I say in, it means I ain't going to stop. Now, I'm not a rock and roller. But I'm not going to stop socialising because socialising at weekends is a very healthy thing to do. And although I don't put any weight whatsoever on a night out, and I really don't, I don't put absolutely any weight or emphasis on the fact that, oh, if I do my hair today, if I wear a shirt tonight, then I'm going to be more presentable to that girl that I want to meet or that person that's going to change my life. I don't think that way at all. Not that I'm negative. But I know through experience, from experience, that I just go with the flow. That's my social time. That's my off time. And if I feel like it at 9 o'clock, I'll hop in the shower and go out. If I don't feel like it, I'll question myself. I'll run it through my head. Because there has been once, I remember, in the last 5 years, say, where I did go out, but I went to see a friend, help him out, and then I couldn't get like parking, traffic, whatever, And the next thing, I said, you know what, I'm closer to home now at this stage rather than going around this turn here and waiting for more. And so I went home, and you know what? I missed it. I missed that little connection come Wednesday. And that said a lot to me, because I believe it's just in seeing people, even not conversation, that's so important. Just seeing a glimmer of a smile or connection with a friend or colleague, workmate or a barmate or call it what you will, bouncer, all these little simple gestures, smiles and connections and being acknowledged, being in the presence of another. They're like little pieces of a social jigsaw that are very important for us, rather than being seated at home or lying on a bed, drinking wine, taking alcohol, drugs, whatever else. I don't think that's healthy. And it's certainly not fun to me. Certainly not at my age. Moments now and reality. That's what encapsulates me and keeps me alive and keeps me driven. And that's why I'm trying to capture these things. But in building on the memories of 30 years of going out and being single, I say to myself, what the hell am I going to do? I'm not going to lie to you. It is a challenge. But I believe in everybody, in every little interaction that I have with people. There's a little percentage, 1%, 0.5%, 0.25%. And they all add up. If you meet 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, all those little micro percentages add up so that you get the goodness and the love from others. I really do believe that. One smile from one person, one gesture from another, kind word. Before you know it, you feel better. You feel better as a person. You feel more whole. Female interconnections. You get a smile from one person. If you get a joke from another. If you get a nice compliment. That just lifts you up. So it's very important how we live, isn't it? So as I contemplate it all and continue to do so, I continue to wonder where it will all go. I'll be back to my walk in a few seconds. But first, it's important to know that the research I'm referring to is by author Marino. Their research is from over 100 years of looking at marriage in middle-aged men, middle-aged people as well. And so the facts for middle-aged men, startling. Back in 1960, 16% of middle-aged people from 40 to 49 were actually unmarried. But now it has actually gone up to 36%. That's a rise of 20%. Now, it's important to specify exactly with regard to the facts of this research. So those in the 40 to 49-year-old bracket in the modern day, this does not include those that have been divorced, widowed, separated. But it does include those who have been unmarried, just cleanly unmarried. Guess what? It's 1/3 of people in their 40s. Now, if we look back, way back to 1900, it's actually 21% of those in their 40s that were married. That skipped on to 16% in 1960 and then rose right up again to 36% in the modern day. So that's actually a 15% increase in 100 years of those that are unmarried in their 40s. So what then beyond the 50 age group? Well, back 100 years ago in 1900, there was those that were unmarried entering into the 50 age group. 34% of them, a third, just over a third of people were unmarried. But 40%, that's an increase again into the modern day. That's an extra 6% remain unmarried after the 50 mark. Now, if we look back to 1960, halfway through the century, or just thereabout, you had 28% of the population, of the US population, that were unmarried. But that has risen in modern day to 49%. That's alarming. That's 50% of people unmarried. Now, the link then is why, and somewhat answering the question in the statistics, is why have we this huge rate of unmarried people? Well, it's partly due to increasing divorce rates. It's partly due to a breakdown in relationships and how people relate to each other. And also, it's accompanied by a sharp decrease in people wanting to get married. Now, previously married adults have substantially contributed to the overall increase of unmarried people, meaning, well, those that have been married don't want to remarry. That doesn't mean, though, it says from the research, that those people, those men, are not living with others, they're not cohabiting with others. They are. Now, with regard to education, 38% of adults with bachelor degrees remain unmarried, whereas 53% who have some college are unmarried. Adults without a high school diploma, well, they contribute particularly highly to the unmarried rate. In fact, it's gone from 31% in 1940 to 56%, so 15% rise in the modern day. So the reality is there's been a huge amount of social change, and so with that, we've had decreased amount of marriage. I remember being at a wedding, okay? I was 23-ish, and the guy was probably around the same age. Girl, same age. Now, this was a time of unprecedented wealth in Ireland, where I'm from, where I was, at the wedding. And this was a big, big wedding, big ass wedding, okay? I was pretty surprised to be invited, and it was the in place to go, this particular hotel. And it was a big wedding, like 300-400 people at it. And I'm not saying I didn't feel comfortable. I did feel comfortable. Like, you know, I knew obviously the bride and the groom, that was cool. I knew a lot of people on the top table and friends and friends of friends, social circles and so on. But the wedding was just, I feel and felt at the time, for show. Now the people are still together, the couple are still together. They were a nice couple. But it was very much of its time. Now at that time I was invited to a lot of weddings. People were getting married at that age. Yet I wasn't bowled over by it. I wasn't tempted at all. And soon after I was invited to another wedding. Now this wedding was pretty cool because they decided that they wanted to have a fancy collection of doves. Doves were to represent, presumably I thought peace, but must have been love for them. And that was fine. And again, these beautiful couple, still together. And I remember we were outside, a lovely day, and they decided to put the doves, obviously the doves were in a cage, okay? And the cage was outside, and they decided to get everybody, I think there's about 200 at this particular wedding. Now, again, it was in my 20s. And the photographer, I remember, stood up on a big pillar and directed everybody who was front row, second row, third row, and so on, to look up in the sky. And as you look up, see this cage of doves here. In fact, I think there was 2 cages now that I think about it. There was 2 small cages, pear-shaped at the top. And look up at the sky, he said, so as if I'm looking up now at the sky. And I want you to stare at the birds, because I'm going to release the birds now, he said, in a moment. And so we're all looking at each other going, gee, this is trivial, this is new, this is unique. Well, some were good, some were bad about it. And that was fine. And so the photographer had this big camera, he was around his neck, he was up on the wall, he was more or less balancing on the wall, looking up. And they opened one cage. The idea for the person who was opening the cage, I don't know what's called, cage openers at weddings or something, I don't know. But they kind of left it ajar off the hook as such, but held it closed. Whilst the other cage was being opened. But unfortunately, the person that was doing the job made a bit of a mess of it. And the first bird went whoosh, up in the air. And of course, I went and did what the photographer said, keep your eye on it. And I did that. And the person beside me did the same thing. The person in front of me kind of was like, whoa, what's going on here? And their head was bobbing around. Then I started looking at the back of their ears and the jewellery on the back of their head and all this kind of stuff. And then I noticed everybody's head, because I was tall, I'm tall, and everybody was smaller in front of me. Back row, front row, centre, and everything. So suddenly everybody was like looking around frantically. And in a split second, the second cage door opened and the other dove went whoosh, the other direction. And so everybody was either looking one direction or the other direction. Now, I don't know, because I've never seen the photographer's wedding photos. In fact, I've never seen any wedding photo from that. But I bet that I may have looked as if I was on a particular concoction of drugs at the time because I was probably looking everywhere. It was just bizarre to me. I don't know, was that planned particularly well? Good idea. But again, I think doves represent peace and not love. But then again, I was probably after having a drink at the time, and maybe I was a little bit unjustified in dictating about getting married at that time, and now as well. But that's memories of weddings and memories of loved ones. But I can remember too, a stag night. Well, it wasn't a stag night really, because I didn't really, to be honest, I haven't really gone to many stag nights. Stag nights being bucks nights, I think, in other countries, or I don't know, they're called ram nights or something. Who knows? But you know, it's when guys go out and they celebrate together, and they have, some places have strippers, and some people have, you know, excess drink or drugs, or they go to Vegas or whatever else. But for this particular time, it was actually the night before a wedding. Different wedding, different people, different couple. And I'm telling you this because these are the moments that should have triggered me into, oh, let me do that. They've done it, I should do it too. Because being married by 50 is the day of the marriage, the wedding, and then you're married. You've got the ring and the finger and all that. You know, you wear it. It's a symbol of, hey, I'm taken. Woohoo! You can't come near me. That's the whole tradition, isn't it? And so, for me, it was a memory that comes back. That's a watershed moment again. Is the night before the wedding, the groom, a particular groom, won't say who it was, and myself ended up the last two socializing. Don't worry, there was no stripper or anything like that. I wouldn't have gone if there was anything like that. And it wasn't a bucks night or a stag night or anything like that. It was just a couple of drinks between a few guys. Anyway, we had our few drinks and a bit of a chat and a bit of this and that. And it came late on. It was just myself left. And he had drank quite a bit. In fact, to be honest, I was like really worried about the guy. So I kind of hung on. I said, I'd come in later in the evening, and I thought, this guy will be going home early, like say 11:30, 12. You want to get up. I think the wedding was on around, in fact, I do remember that wedding was around lunchtime, 1 o'clock. And I know there was going to be traffic. There's traffic forecast. There was other things on that weekend. Busy where the church was. And the funny thing was, we had a conversation. And our relationship as friends, as guys, deepened tenfold in that particular conversation. And the conversation ensued insofar as he started telling me he nearly cheated on his fiancée. Only very recently, before the next day wedding. First thing I asked was, have you told her? No, she doesn't know. I said, oh, maybe you should tell her. I said, hey, look, maybe that's why I'm not married by 50. Fair enough. But there was a second reason for me to ask that question, and it was basically I wasn't too comfortable in finding out what was going on. And so, it's not that I didn't want to be the shoulder to cry on or anything like that, but here we are like 12 hours before the guy's wedding, and he's telling me, and only telling me about it, that he nearly cheated on her, his wife to be, with an extremely attractive younger woman. And there was mention of a swimming pool in a hotel, and so on. I won't give away any more details. But you know, again, you're kind of in your mind at that stage. I remember the bar I was in, I remember the conversation. Elephants like me don't forget. I was thinking, like, what would I do if I was in his shoes? Would I have even got into that situation? Be it engagement, potential marriage, or even conversation in the second place with the beautiful young woman. Would I have been in a hotel? Would there have been a swimming pool around? Would there be potential for anything? Would I not have put it into my own mind where Potentially my fiance, my wife-to-be, would not be happy with this. So there's all of that going on for me, and was at the time too. So there's lots of moments for me. I don't really get in any way in a tizzy about weddings, or I don't get too excited about them. I think marriage is more important than weddings. You can get wed in many ways, and that's another thing. Over the years, all over these 30 years, the difference in my peers and in people that I know, and even my locality and where I'm from, and people I've gotten to know throughout life, the difference in how people have gotten married, how much money they've spent, where they have spent the money on, has been phenomenal. I was at another wedding where there was a comedian, professional comedian, brought into the wedding. So speeches was a big thing, right? After dinner speeches, speak about the groom, the antics. Maybe a brother might stand up, or a friend, good friend, best friend. Some of them would read from a piece of paper, or some would just come, naturally with it. After that, then you'd have maybe a bridesmaid speech, maybe a father of the bride speech, and then of course music, disco, late into the night. But this particular wedding had a comedian, and the comedian was on for a good hour before the speeches. And again, the comedian was making fun of brides, grooms, single people. I got up to go to the toilet because I was absolutely dying to go to the toilet, and yet ready to rock and roll and have a good night after that. So when I got to go to the toilet, I got made a potential fool of by the comedian. Oh, there he is, he's gone to the toilet, and boom, the door closed because I was in the toilet. So I didn't hear what else happened after that. Obviously he was going to make a joke of me. But had he known at the time that I was single, that I was trying to mingle, and that he was delaying the fact that I was going to mingle at a wedding to meet ladies, well then, it could have been another wedding made out of that. Who knows? Not that I'm blaming him or anybody for these past 30 years and not getting married by 50. I'm not blaming anybody. Then if I look into relationships that I've had, relationships that were not had, friendships, potential, and like I say, the changes in weddings, the changes in the traditions of weddings, like I've just described there with regard to the speeches and so on. In so much as they have changed, the weddings and the design of them, and what has become the in thing to do for weddings, the same thing has changed for marriage. The proposed and expected length of marriage has changed. The potential for children or number of children has changed. The economic plan around that, the living situations around that, drastically changed. And when they change, every new wedding, every new couple insists this is the thing to do now. This is the way it's done. Oh yeah, this is the way it's done. And if you take me, I'm an old fogey now, 10 years or so since I've been at a wedding. If somebody invited me tomorrow and I went to that wedding, the reality is I then would go to the wedding and have the conversation all about weddings, as you do, and you sit beside who you sit beside, maybe couples or single people who've been at more weddings more recently, and they tell you the done thing. Because everybody talks about the common things, whatever's at the table, whatever's on the table, the meals, the times of serving, the length of time between meals, first, second, third course, what you're having, the band, the music, the noise level, and so on. What's the norm? The norm has changed so much. In the same way, the norm of how you meet people has changed so much over 30 years. And I won't even put it at just where, as I started this, with regard to like every 5 years, noting my own landmarks every 5 years. I won't say that there's just a change every 5 years and it just suddenly happens and changes. Or cultural shift every 10 years. It's not that simple. It's like a wave. Everything is settled for a while. Everybody's sure of it. If you go far out in the sea, there'll be water everywhere. Okay? But that's the norm. No matter where you look, you see on the horizon, as far as you can see, water, water, water everywhere. Clouds, water, blue and blue. there is no change. You look 360 all around yourself. There's no change. That's what couples do. They do that in their courting. When they meet each other, they go through stages, early stages of the relationship. Eventually that comes to a point, maybe a pressure point of, oh, we should get married, or what are your future plans? What are your intentions here? And then you have an engagement period. And from there it's public that we are promising each other to each other. Here's a ring, dingle dingle, and it's shining like the sun on my finger. And so therefore, this is a promise that we're going to be with each other forever. But of course, weddings create marriages, and the marriages can be ripped up, piece of paper in a court order or whatever else, through separation, divorce, etc. So there is no real guarantee of whatever one person dictates to be the promise to the other. Now, maybe that promise is founded on love, and that's solid. That's solid. Love is lovely. But the thing about love is a feeling. And if it's a feeling, that means the man feels it, the woman feels it. But unless the two brains were taken out of the skulls and put together and examined, how can we know that both of them two people are feeling the exact same feeling? And how do we know that both of those definitions of love for those two individuals are the same thing? Because I don't doubt the majority of couples get married, and certainly are married and well married by 50, are not happy. But what I do question at this stage is, why do they actually separate if they're so happy in the first place? Be they get married at 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, whatever it is. Be they get married at the culturally normal time, and that's another thing. People get married. When I was 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, people got married. That was it. You came to 30, oh, you're 30. You're a bit too old now. But like, honestly, 30 went to 35 with me very quickly. And then, like I said earlier on, 35 is 35 and your friend gets engaged. But that then becomes different because people start splitting up and getting back together, maybe, or getting a second partner, second marriage at 35, 40. And then it becomes a norm to split up. But the people that got married at 23, 24, mid-20s, when I was that age, there was no norm ever at that stage for separations. Separations only came legal in the country, in my country, in 1995. This is 2005. Things were different. The projection of 2015 at the time was Never Neverland. It was 10 years' time. There was no way this was going to happen. That would not have even been considered a joke at the wedding in 2005, that the potential for a separation was ever going to happen. It's like looking at old TV 10, 20 years previously, even predictions, things that were considered crazy. And when we get to, and we talk about predictions, it's time for me to make the prediction now rather than looking back, as I think out loud, long and loud and proud about how I'm not going to be married at 50. Where am I going to be? Will I get married? The thought has been put into my head recently about, it's your choice. I will admit one thing. I didn't feel it was my choice over the years in general, because I felt that it was the choice of two people, me and the other. And so surely if love can be felt by two, there should be choice by two. If it's my choice, surely then I should be going around and asking several to marry me. Because after all, my experience over the years, if you ask several girls to dance, several girls for tea, or several girls for coffee, they won't all say yes. Some would say no, and that's the prerogative. That's okay. Should I go then and start desperately asking several to marry? What happens if two say yes? Do I marry two? That's illegal. I'm not trying to be facetious on this, but I am curious about it all. But I think at this stage, I'm happy within myself. And for me to feel love, firstly and foremostly, has to be in how I live and how I am and how I feel about the simple things in life. And I don't believe that I will change in that regard. Other than that, I'm not looking for anything fancy. I'm looking for something simple. And so I think life is simple if you choose to make it so. And I like to keep it simple. Maybe I'm an awkward jigsaw piece. And maybe the potential for the opposite, the female, to come in and join me in holy matrimony is a jigsaw piece that just doesn't fit. Who knows? I'll know in the future. I certainly know the past of it all. But for now, all I can do is be happy and continue socializing.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video. If you subscribe, comment to say that you have, and we'll look after you.